All right, welcome to making a Hunger Games questionnaire and character guesser. This is probably one of my favorite little programs that we kind of make and lets you have a chance to modify or make your own version. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this Boolean logic, these and statements, or statements. We're also going to include false and true, which I think are a little bit more intuitive. If something is true, it means the program is saying it's true, or if it's false, it's not agreeing with it. It's not. So those two, not as concerned. I think you'll, just because you're English, you'll be okay with that. We're going to start off with making a screen for when somebody comes on. So I'm going to make this background black to start. It'll really make the text pop. And then we're going to have some text here. And I'm going to call it Welcome to the 2016 Hunger Games show game. Hunger Games game show. I don't know. Game show. There we go. Now that makes this seem a lot older than it really is. So that was a long time ago. Let's go 2020. New time. Now we're going to make that right in the middle of the text. So 50 comma 50. And let's just see how that looks. It's already angry at us, which is not a good start because I did not finish my string variable. There we go. Okay, so now we've got black on black, which doesn't really help us all that much. So we need to give this text some color. So we'll put a fill of 255, 2040. Should be in a nice yellow gold kind of color. Perfect. So it kind of pops right against that screen. Now the background is refreshing each time, so our text isn't getting fuzzy, so far that isn't an issue. We're going to ask 4 questions of the person in this game. So we should actually get away from P5 for a second and start looking at what those questions would be based on Hunger Games. So a couple key defining things we can say is the character female? Possibly, do they live in the capital? Are they drunk? Maybe you know who I'm thinking of right now. Were they a tribute? So those are the 4 things we're going to kind of look at. And we're going to compare them for different characters. So we'll do Katniss. We'll do Prim. Effie. Peeta. Hamish. And Snow. So we need to actually have the proper answers for each of these. Now at this point, we're going to kind of go back to P5 and look at, well, how would I make these questions then show up? Because that's really what I want to look at first, is how are we going to use functions to make all of these questions possible? So the first question I want to look at out of those 4 is whether the character is male or female. So we have to ask the person who's playing this game, is the character female? Now I'm doing this as a yes, no. It's just going to make life a little bit easier when we're coding this. So we'll say yes, no. Make sure we end our string. Put this somewhere near the bottom. And just make sure it actually shows up properly. Perfect. So it's showing up there. Now after that then, we want it whatever the person inputs. So we're going to pull up our function key pressed. And we'll use some if statements. So if the key pressed, so if our key is equal to y, then we want something to happen. And if the key is equal to n, then we want something else to happen. Now with these, we need something to store our information in. So I want to hold the idea that we said the character is either male or female, so I'm going to create a variable to do that. And so I'm going to call it is female. So we'll go let is female. And we're going to start off with that being false, meaning it's not true. So that'll be our default is false. So if they say yes, then we're going to say is female should actually be equal to true. Now it does have to be a lowercase. So now for the rest of the program, it's going to actually hold that information that we said yes to that question. Meaning, if they say no, well, is female is already false, so we don't actually need to change anything there. I'm still going to leave this though, because there is another issue that we have to deal with here in a second. So far all is good. And then we're going to want some text saying, is the character, well, what was our next one that we said? In capital. So do they live in the capital? So does the character live in the capital? Again, it'll be a yes/no question, and our string. And I'm going to put this a little bit lower just to make it so that we don't have a fuzzy part of this. So we'll do 350. Both texts should show up. Yep. Does the character live in the capital? Now this is where we got the problem though. So if I play this now and I hit Y, okay, so then nothing shows up, nothing happens, which is okay. We need to actually do some printing. So in the console. So we're going to print out our is female variable. And that should show us if this is working. So if I hit yes, right now you can see it's saying it's false, which is good. That's what we started with. So if I hit Y, it should say true. Perfect. Now if I hit N, nothing happens. That's okay. We're only going to give the person one chance. Here's the problem though, is how do I now tell the computer that I don't want to answer this question anymore. I want to go on to the next one. And this is where we have to start using functions and our Boolean logic. So we have to keep track of which question we're on. So I'm going to build one at the very top of this actually. We'll do let quest num. And I'll start off with that equaling 1. Or actually even 0. And the reason I'm going to put 0 is I don't want the person to be able to accidentally hit something while something's loading. Now in my function setup, once everything's loaded, then I'm going to let the quest number be 1. So I'm going to put quest num equals 1 now. And how we're going to use that in our function is we're going to compare. So if the key is yes and we're on question 1, so we said that's quest num equals 1, then we want to do this question. Okay, and same thing here. If we hit no and we're on question 1, which is question num equals 1, then we want this stuff to happen. Now, so we can see if that everything should still work. It's still going to say false. I'll say Y. It should change to true. That's good. But then, well, how do I get to my next question then? So once we're done this question and you've answered, you're going to want to change that quest num. And just to prevent any issues, I'm going to just say, hey, you're now equal to 2. And in this one where we didn't actually have to switch it, the is female variable, we still are going to want to put that quest num to equal 2 either way. So that means regardless if they pick true or yes or no, it's still going to change the quest number. And again, let's print that out. So I'm going to put a comma here. So our first thing will be the female variable, and the second one will be our quest number. Okay. So now I should see two things. So right as soon as I play it, you can see it's sitting at 1. Now if I hit no, our quest number should go to 2. It does, and it should stay as false. Good. So now if I play it, reset it, if I hit yes, it's now saying true, and it's saying quest number 2. Perfect. That's what we want. So now we can go on to question 2 then. And it looks very similar. So we're going to actually copy a lot of this code. The big difference though is what question number we're on. So now we're on question number 2. And now we're on question number 2. So it would be helpful probably to say, hey, this is question 2. And we can, oh, that's not the right slash, there we go. So that's question 2. And this will be question 1. Okay, so now it's a little bit more helpful in that we do need to change this variable. And so we'll need to make a new one. So and we'll call it in capital. And again, we'll start off with it false. We'll kind of do the same. You could start off with these as true as well. It doesn't really matter too much. So if we hit yes, it's question 2. Then we want the in capital variable to change to true. Now, if they say no, doesn't matter. We don't need it to change. So let's see if this is working. So far, we've got yes, and you can see it turns to true, and the question number goes. Now, we can't really see if the next one's working yet. One thing we could do is check if the question number goes. So let's make the question number 3 then. So that's saying to the computer, hey, let's go to question 3. So let's try one more time. So I said yes, so it should change to true. And right away, we've got an issue here. It's jumped all the way to 3. So it's actually bypassed some questions on us. Now, this is actually an okay problem because we're going to actually make the code more efficient. Right now, the computer has to read every single one of these if statements. Well, if the first one's true, I don't need the other ones. So instead of being if, we're going to use else if, and else if, and else if, meaning if this first one's true, it doesn't read the other 3. But if the second one's true, then it doesn't read the next 2. And only if it actually makes it through all of these, we'll get to this last one. So let's check if that's working properly now. So I'm going to hit yes. We should see true. And yes, it goes to 2. It doesn't jump right to 3. I'm going to say yes again. And now perfect. The quest number has gone to 3. So we know we're running. It might be nice to see if this capital is actually working properly as well. So let's go and add a third thing to this. We'll say in capital. And this print is going to really help to make sure everything's working. So first question, is the character female? Let's go with no. So we see it's still saying false, but now we're in question 2. So then, hey, let's say, do they live in the capital? Sure, yes. So good, the first one has stayed false. The second, which is our capital, went to true. And then we are in question number 3. So far, so good. The one thing I don't like, though, is I can see both of these, which doesn't really make me super happy. I'd like to only see one question at a time. And how I'm going to do that is using functions. So at the bottom, after this key press statement, I'm going to start making my own new function. Now I can label these functions whatever I want, as long as it's not something that's already in the program. So I'm going to just label this question 1. I think that probably makes the most sense. And we're going to leave the parameter empty. And then inside these curly brackets, what do we want to happen when we say question 1? This looks kind of weird to me in my eyes. I'm going to change this to just a regular one. Well, when I hit question 1, I want the text to come on the screen. And so I'm actually going to take all of this text, and that's what I want to appear when it calls function question 1. Because we want the introduction to happen right away. You could make a nice starter screen and graphics, but that's not really my intention for what I'm showing here. Now the nice thing is I can actually split up all my questions, and I can call this function question 2. And then inside of there, I can put my next question. Now I also want this welcome to the Hunger Games. I want that to stay up the whole time, so every time I call a new question, I'm actually going to redraw it. Again, there is other ways to do this. This is just how I'm choosing to do it. Now to make sure that my old text does go away, I need to actually put the background. So in this draw, I'm going to take out the background so it doesn't keep on redrawing over and over again. And I will put that in my question. I want that to happen before the text. I do want that every time the new question is called, so it wipes out everything we already had. With that then, I no longer want this draw function happening over and over again. So I'm going to get rid of that. I do want the print to happen. I think that's still useful to us. This fill, I'm not going to keep on calling that over and over again. That's going to be a waste of our program. So I'm just going to make it happen once in the setup. So our draw function is almost completely gone. So then we need to figure out, well, how do I get this information here then? Well, I go to my setup, and then I just call the function. So once I've said what quest number we're doing, what my fill is, I'm going to type in question 1. And so we've already made this a function, so our computer knows when it sees question 1, it's going to go to the very bottom, and it's going to say, oh, this is the code it wants me to run. But let's make sure that works. Yep, there we go. So is the character female? And that's the only thing that we actually want running right now. So if I hit yes, the Boolean logic should still work the same. Yep, true. Let's move to 2. Perfect. Now, how do we get question 2 to come then? Well, after the person has answered the first question, and we know they've answered right here when they either said yes or no, then once we've changed the question number, we are going to say, hey, I want to do question 2. Now we do need that in either one, so regardless whether it's a yes or no, we do want that in there. Just going to fix the indenting there. And this will black out the background so far. So if is the question female? Yes. And you can see, oh, does the character live in the capital? Sure, yes. One thing I don't like is it kind of jumped there. So the nice thing about this being in functions is a little more organized. I can see, okay, this is question 1, question 2. Question 2 is just a little too low. Let's put it 300 to match. So now it'll look a little nicer. So is the character female? Yes. Does the character live in the capital? Yes. Perfect. Now I'm going to let you continue on the other 2 questions. I will post the full thing for you. Actually, you know what? I'm going to post it in right now. So I've gone ahead. I've added some things that are just repetitive. So you can see I have 2 new variables, is drunk, is tribute. So those are just attributes we were talking about before. Some other things that I've added is if we go down to the questions, we now have a question 3, Boolean logics for the yes and the no. The question numbers have gone up, so now you can see it goes 2, 3, and then 4 based on what question it is. Inside of question 3 is the is drunk question, and then is tribute is the question 4. I've also made our new questions. So question 3, question 4. I doesn't look like I actually called my next questions, so we're gonna have to just quickly type that in there. Question 3 to that function, and we'll do that for here as well. So this should be question 3 again, because that's the end of question 2, and then at the end of question 3 we should be calling question 4. And just making sure all of this is nicely indented over one more than the else statement. And so here we have question 4. All right, let's just see if all of this works. So is the character female? Yes. I also changed the print, so you can see it's question 1, 2, 3, 4. So yes, it's changed to true. Yes, it changed to true. Yes, it changed to true. And whether I have attribute, yes, it changed to true. True. Now here is where it kind of stops, and we need to actually finish this then. So once we have all the information we want from the person, we need to call it make another function, and this is going to be our guess function. So I'll do this at the end of the questions. So I'm going to go call it function, and I think we'll call it guess answer. So what we want to happen in this function, now this is where functions really shine, because this is going to be a little bit more complicated. We're going to have to use some Boolean logic. I'm only going to do 2 of these with you. Okay, so we're going to do if, we'll do Katniss as answers. So we'll do an if statement. So Katniss, is she female? Yes, she's female. So then we'll just leave that alone. To make an end, we'll do the double ampersand. Does she live in the capital? Well, no. So in capital, to make this compare to see if it is false, you need to actually put one of these, an exclamation mark. And it just says that is not true. Okay, so right now it's saying in capital, it's either false or true. So if it's saying it's not true, then that's what we want. Is she a drunk? Well, no, she's not a drunk either. So then we're going to change this to is drunk, and again we'll put an exclamation mark saying she is not. Finally, was she a tribute? Yes, she was a tribute. So we'll just leave it like that. So if all 4 of these things are true, so we'd have to say true, false, false, true, only then will the program actually say something. And we're going to have to redo our background. So our background again will be 0. And then we'll put our text. And we'll say you were thinking of Katniss. And we're going to be happy about that. So, and we will go put our 50 and then comma 300. It might be nice too if the person could still see that they're playing the 2020 Hunger Games. So I'm going to copy that in there as well. Missing a comma here. There we go. So let's try this out. So we're looking for, is your character female? Yes. Does she live in the capital? No. Is your character a heavy drinker? No. And is she a tribute? Yes. Well, the problem is we've met all the criteria, but we haven't actually called this guess answer. We want to call this at the very end of our last question. So question 4, whether they say yes or no, we want to call that guess answer function. And we need that here as well. All right, let's try again. So is your character female? Yes. Does your character live in the capital? No. Were they ever a drinker? No. Was your character ever a tribute? Yes. Oh, you were thinking of Katniss. Perfect. Because we met all the criteria, and you can compare our criteria to our console. So again, it's true, false, false, true. And that's what we have right now. True, false, false, true. Perfect. Now what happens if we give something I wasn't expecting? Like yes, 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 yes. Oh, nothing happens. We don't have any of those. So we don't have one of those built yet. So in our guess answer, again, to maybe save some processing power, we're going to do else if, so it doesn't have to go through all these statements if one of the first ones is. We'll do prim. Everyone likes prim. So you were sorry, got ahead of myself there. So is she female? Yes. Does she live in the capital? No, so does not in capital. Was she a drunk? Nope, I hope not. Is drunk. And then was she a tribute? No, almost. But no, she wasn't quite there, so tribute. Need to make sure that's a capital. That's how I labeled earlier. Okay, so then if all of those conditions are met, then we'll have very similar text. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. I need the background as well. And we're just going to say, hey, you were thinking of prim. Okay, so let's try this one out. So is your character female? Yes. Prim is female. Does she live in the capital? No. Was she a heavy drinker? No. Was she a tribute? No. You were thinking of prim. Perfect. Now for each of the characters that we were thinking of, you would have to do a Boolean logic like this for each one of them. Now I'm going to let you do that. But at the end, there might be some possibilities where you don't have. Maybe characters don't fit any of those. So at the very end, I would do an else statement. And I'm going to say something in there. So else, if none of these things are true, we might say some text. And we'll use pretty much the same setup. Maybe we'll say, are you sure that character's in? Are you sure that character is in the Hunger Games? So if I put any combination that doesn't exist in our code before this, then it's going to go to this. And that's what we do in else. Else is always the last thing you should do. It kind of takes care of all of the other statements. So is your character female? No. Do they live in the capital? No. Are they a heavy drinker? No. Are they a tribute? No. And then, oh, it doesn't meet either of the criteria that we did. So it's going to ask the question, are you even sure that character's in the game? So I'll let you play around and do the last couple characters. Some other ones I thought of that we could do probably, and I have done, was Effie, Peta, Hamish, and Snow. The problem is if there's two characters that have the exact same criteria, it won't work. You'd only be able to pick one of them, or you could add like a fifth one. If you have any questions, let me know. I will post the full code for you.